Liam had just finished his classes for the day and was heading back to his dorm. The sky was clear, and the warm sun was slowly sinking behind the trees as he walked through the forest path that led to his small college campus. He enjoyed the quietness of the woods, a perfect escape from the busy student life. As Liam continued down the path, he suddenly heard a loud crash. Startled, he looked up, his eyes scanning the sky. A bright fiery object was falling through the air, heading straight towards the ground. His heart raced, and his curiosity got the better of him. Without thinking, he sprinted in the direction of the crash. As he got closer, the crash site became visible, smoke and debris scattered across the clearing. Liam's heart skipped a beat as he saw something extraordinary. Amidst the wreckage of what appeared to be a small spaceship, there was a figure lying motionless on the ground. It wasn't human. He hesitated for a moment, his mind racing, but something inside told him to help. He approached cautiously, stepping over twisted metal and broken parts. The figure on the ground was a woman, but she wasn't like anyone Liam had ever seen. Her skin was a smooth, shimmering shade of blue, and her long silver hair was spread out across the ground like strands of stardust. She was dressed in strange, metallic clothing that looked far beyond anything Liam had ever imagined. Liam knelt beside her, his breath quickening with worry. "Hey, are you okay?" he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. Her eyes fluttered open, and Liam was taken aback by the intense violet glow of her gaze. She seemed disoriented, her body trembling slightly. "Where am I?" she murmured weakly, her voice soft but foreign. Liam had no idea how to respond. He had never seen anyone like this before. Was she from another planet? "Don't worry, I'll help you," Liam said, trying to keep calm as he supported her head. She stared at him for a long moment, as if studying his every feature. Her breath steadied as she blinked at him, and then she slowly tried to sit up. "You are not like them," she said, her voice growing stronger. "You are not like the others." Liam frowned. "What do you mean, the others?" He was even more confused now. Who was she? And why was she so different from anyone he had ever seen? Before she could answer, a sudden, distant noise broke the silence. The sound of engines, powerful and roaring, echoed through the forest. The woman's eyes widened in alarm, and she immediately grabbed Liam's arm. "They're coming for me," she said urgently, her grip tightening. Liam looked around, anxiety building up in his chest. He couldn't see anyone, but the sound was getting louder. The woman seemed to know exactly what was happening, and it was clear that whoever, or whatever, was coming for her wasn't friendly. He had no idea what was going on, but one thing was clear. He couldn't leave her here. "Come on," Liam said, lifting her gently. "We need to get you somewhere safe." With no time to waste, he helped her to her feet, and they ran, the distant sound of the engines chasing them deeper into the forest. Liam and the mysterious woman ran through the dense forest, their footsteps quick and heavy. The sound of engines grew louder, the powerful hum vibrating through the trees. Liam could feel his heart pounding in his chest, fear creeping into his mind. Who were these people chasing her? And why were they so determined to find her? "Faster," the woman urged, her grip on Liam's arm tightening as they sprinted. Her voice was calm but urgent, as if she knew exactly what was at stake. Liam tried to keep up, but the forest was thick with branches and roots that made it hard to move quickly. "Who are they?" Liam asked, his breath coming in sharp gasps. The woman glanced over her shoulder, her violet eyes wide with fear. "They're soldiers from my planet," she replied quickly. "They're part of the military. They're after me." Liam's confusion deepened. "Why? What did you do?" She shook her head. "It's not what I did. It's who I am." Her voice trembled as she spoke, as if the weight of her words was too much for her to carry. Liam didn't know what to make of it, but he didn't have time to question her. The sound of engines was nearly deafening now, and it was clear they were getting closer. He looked around, searching for any place to hide. "There's a cave up ahead," the woman suddenly shouted, pointing to a narrow opening in the hillside just visible through the trees. Without hesitation, Liam pulled her toward the cave. The rocks surrounding it were jagged, and the entrance was small, but it was the only place to hide. They reached the cave and ducked inside, just in time to hear the whirring of alien ships passing overhead. Liam could barely make out their shapes as they soared above the trees, searching for any sign of their target. His heart raced as the sound grew fainter, but the woman beside him was still tense, her eyes darting nervously to the entrance of the cave. "We have to wait here," she whispered, her voice shaky. "They won't stop until they find me." Liam nodded, trying to steady his breathing. The silence in the cave was heavy, broken only by the woman's soft breathing. He looked at her again, studying her carefully. She was obviously not from Earth, but there was something about her that made Liam feel like he needed to protect her, like she was important, more important than he could possibly understand. "What's your name?" Liam asked, his voice gentle. "Zira," she replied quietly, her eyes meeting his for the first time since they'd run. "I'm the princess of my people." Liam blinked in surprise. Princess. He had never imagined he would be hiding with an actual alien princess, let alone one being hunted by her own military. "Yes," she whispered, her shoulders slumping as the weight of her situation seemed to settle on her again. "I was supposed to inherit the throne, but my family, they don't want me anymore. They think I'm a threat." Liam didn't know what to say. How could anyone see her as a threat? She was kind, scared, and completely out of place on Earth. But before he could respond, the sounds of the ships grew louder again, signaling the soldiers' return. "We need to move," Zira said quickly, her voice steadying. "They will find us if we stay here too long." Liam nodded, and without a second thought, he stood up. He couldn't let anything happen to her. He wasn't sure what was going on, but one thing was clear. Zira needed him, and he wasn't going to let her down. With the alien ships still hovering in the distance, Liam grabbed her hand, ready to run again. They had to get out of there, before it was too late. Liam and Zira ran deeper into the forest, the shadows of the trees growing longer as the evening sun dipped lower in the sky. The alien ships were still hovering in the distance, searching, but Liam didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Zira's safety was his priority now, and despite everything being so strange, he felt a deep sense of responsibility for her. Zira's feet moved quickly, but Liam could feel her exhaustion. She had been through a lot, crash landing, being hunted, and now running from soldiers who wanted to capture her. It wasn't easy. Liam couldn't imagine what it must feel like for her, being so far from home, surrounded by people she didn't trust, and now on Earth, hiding with someone she didn't know. "Where are we going?" Liam asked, glancing at her as they moved through the thick woods. Zira's eyes scanned the area, her expression focused. "There's a place," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "It's not far. We can hide there until the ships move on." She paused for a moment, then added, "It's a safe house. My people have them in different places, in case something like this happens." Liam didn't ask how she knew about this place. The way she spoke made it clear she had been through dangerous situations before. He trusted her, even if he didn't understand everything about her or her world. After a few more minutes of running, they finally reached the edge of the forest. A small clearing opened up ahead, and in the center, Liam saw a structure that looked nothing like anything he'd ever seen. It was a large, circular building, with shimmering walls made of a material that seemed to change colors depending on how the light hit it. It wasn't made of stone or wood. It looked like something out of a science fiction movie, but it was real, right in front of him. "What is this?" Liam asked in awe, stopping just short of the entrance. "This is one of our safe houses," Zira explained, her voice calm despite the tense situation. "It's hidden from our enemies, protected by cloaking technology. No one can see it unless they know where to look." Liam didn't know what to say. He had been expecting a small cabin or an abandoned building, but this was beyond anything he could imagine. Zira led him inside, and as soon as they stepped through the entrance, Liam felt a change in the air. The inside was spacious, with high vaulted ceilings and walls covered in smooth metallic panels. The light inside was soft, but it didn't come from any visible source. It seemed to just glow from the walls themselves. It felt otherworldly. "This place is amazing," Liam whispered, taking it all in. Zira smiled faintly. "It's designed to blend in with its surroundings. My people don't like to attract attention." Liam noticed a small table in the center of the room, and Zira walked toward it, her steps slow and deliberate. She seemed to be scanning something on the surface of the table, and soon a holographic map appeared, floating in the air above it. Liam leaned in to get a better look. "This is my home planet," Zira said, pointing to a glowing spot on the map. "I was supposed to rule here, but my family, they turned against me. They think I'm a danger to the throne." Liam felt his heart ache for her. It was hard to imagine why anyone would want to hurt someone like Zira. She seemed kind, intelligent, and more than capable of leading. "We need to get you home," Liam said softly. He didn't know how, but he was determined to help her. He had no idea how he had gotten caught up in all this, but now that he wasn't about to back down. Zira looked at him, her violet eyes filled with gratitude. "I didn't expect someone like you to come to my aid," she said quietly. "But now, I don't think I can do this without you." Liam felt a warmth spread through him. He didn't know where this journey would take him, but one thing was certain. He was no longer just a student from Earth. He was something more now, something important. And whatever came next, he would face it with Zira by his side. Liam sat quietly in the safe house, his eyes scanning the holographic map that Zira had brought up earlier. The glowing lines and symbols seemed foreign, like a language he could barely understand. It made him realize how deep into something he'd never signed up for he had gotten. A normal day of classes had turned into running from alien soldiers, and now he was sitting in a secret alien hideout, planning the fate of a princess. Zira stood by the table, her fingers lightly tracing the glowing map, looking more serious than ever. Her violet eyes were focused, her mind clearly racing through the many possible outcomes of their situation. Despite her calm demeanor, Liam could see the weight on her shoulders. "You're going back home, aren't you?" Liam asked after a long silence. He was certain that's what she wanted to do, but he needed to hear it from her. Zira didn't turn to look at him immediately. "Yes," she finally said, her voice steady. "But I can't go back alone. Not with the military on my tail. They'll never stop hunting me if I try to return without the proper protection. They would either capture me or worse." Liam nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. This wasn't just about saving her life anymore. It was about helping her return to a place she once called home, a place that was now both her birthright and her prison. But there was something else in Zira's words, something that gave Liam pause. "What do you need from me?" he asked, his voice soft but firm. Zira turned to face him, her expression a mix of determination and gratitude. "I need someone who knows how to fight," she said. "Someone who can protect me and help me get back to my planet. I need a partner." She paused for a moment, her gaze holding his. "I need you, Liam." Liam's heart raced. He never imagined his day would lead to something like this. One moment, he was just a student trying to finish his homework, and now he was being asked to help an alien princess fight for her life and the future of an entire planet. "I don't know how to fight," he admitted, his voice hesitant. "I'm just a college student." Zira gave him a small smile, a hint of amusement in her eyes. "You've already fought for me once today," she said, "and you were brave. That's all I need. You may not know how to fight with weapons, but you have the will to protect others. That's more than most people have." Liam swallowed hard. He didn't feel brave. He was terrified most of the time, not knowing what he was doing. But in that moment, looking at Sarah, at someone who had no one else to turn to, he knew what he had to do. He couldn't walk away now, not when she needed him. "All right," Liam said, his voice steady now. "I'll help you. We'll get you back to your planet. Together." Zyra's face softened, and for the first time since they had met, she truly smiled. It wasn't just a polite smile, but one that spoke of relief and trust. "Thank you, Liam. I will never forget this." The next few hours were spent making plans. Zyra showed Liam everything she knew about her home planet, the routes she had to take, and the military forces hunting her. The more Liam learned, the more he realized how dangerous this was going to be. It wasn't just about getting Zyra home. It was about taking down an entire military force that wanted her dead. But as Zyra explained her plan, Liam could see the fire in her eyes. This wasn't just about survival for her. This was about reclaiming her future. And now, Liam was part of that future. He didn't know how, but he knew this. He wasn't going to let her face this alone. He'd made a pact with Zyra, a pact forged by trust, by danger, and by the idea that together they could change everything. The first steps of their journey had begun. The night was still, too still. Liam and Zyra had taken refuge in a hidden cave far from the safe house, preparing for the next phase of their escape. They had a few hours before the alien military would likely pick up their trail again. Zyra had insisted they rest, but Liam could hardly sleep, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that the soldiers would be closing in soon. Zyra, however, seemed calm. Her usual quiet determination was present as she worked, reviewing the maps and gathering her equipment. She had shared everything she knew about the military forces hunting her, and Liam could feel the weight of it all. Her planet's rulers, her family, had branded her a traitor, and now the very people she had once trusted were willing to kill her to prevent her from taking her rightful place on the throne. A low hum echoed through the cave, and Liam's stomach tightened. The sound was familiar, the engines of the alien ships. They were here, or at least close enough for him to hear. His instincts kicked in, and he stood up, ready to fight. "We don't have much time," he said, turning to Zyra, who was still studying the map. "I know," she replied, her voice calm but filled with resolve. She glanced at the cave entrance, and then back to Liam. "We'll need to move fast if we're going to stay ahead of them. This is our last chance." Liam's heart beat faster. He wasn't sure what exactly was waiting for them outside, but he knew they couldn't stay hidden much longer. "Are you ready?" he asked, checking the makeshift weapons they had gathered. The weapons were primitive by the standards of her people, but Zyra had managed to scavenge a few alien devices, ones that might at least help them defend themselves if things got ugly. Zyra nodded. "I'll be with you every step of the way. Let's do this." They left the cave, moving as quietly as possible through the thick forest. The night sky above them was clouded over, but the flicker of distant lights from the alien ships gave the scene an eerie glow. As they moved through the trees, the sound of the ships grew louder, and Liam's nerves were on edge. Suddenly, a bright flash of light lit up the sky, and the sound of powerful engines roared to life. The ships had spotted them. "They're here," Liam shouted, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He grabbed Zyra's hand and pulled her behind a large tree, taking cover. The air was thick with the sound of the alien ships descending. They weren't far now, and Liam could hear the voices of the soldiers through the trees, shouting commands as they searched the area. "They know we're here," Zyra said, her voice tight with tension. "It's time to make our stand." Liam nodded. There was no turning back now. He took a deep breath, clutching the alien weapon that Zyra had handed him earlier. It looked strange in his hands, but it was a weapon, and it was the only thing standing between them and certain capture. Zyra stepped forward, her face hardening with determination. "We fight for our freedom, Liam. We fight for my future." The first alien soldiers appeared through the trees, their armored suits reflecting the light of the ships above. They were closing in, and Liam's pulse quickened. He raised the weapon, his hands shaking, but his resolve strong. "You won't take her," Liam said, his voice firm. "I'll protect her with my life." The soldiers hesitated, unsure what to make of the human standing before them, armed and ready to fight. But they had underestimated Liam. He fired first, the weapon releasing a powerful blast that sent one of the soldiers tumbling backward. Zira's eyes flashed with approval, and she quickly joined the fight, using her own advanced technology to disable one of the ships in the distance. The battle was fierce, but for the first time, Liam felt a sense of power. He was no longer just a student trying to survive. He was fighting for something greater. And as the alien soldiers began to fall, one by one, Liam knew that together, he and Zira could take on whatever the galaxy threw at them. The battle wasn't over yet, but it was a victory in the making, and Liam was ready to fight until the end. The forest around them was alive with sounds of battle. Alien ships hovered in the sky, their weapons flashing in the night, while soldiers clashed with Liam and Zira in the undergrowth. The air smelled of smoke and burning metal, and every step seemed to take them deeper into a fight they couldn't escape. But in that moment, something changed. The soldiers, once determined and relentless in their pursuit of Zira, began to hesitate. One by one, they started to retreat, their movements sluggish and uncertain. It was as if they were losing confidence. Liam could see it. There was a shift in the air. Zira was no longer the helpless princess on the run. She was fighting back, using the weapons she'd gathered, and doing it with a skill that took Liam by surprise. Every blast she fired, every maneuver she made, was flawless. She wasn't just a princess, she was a warrior. As the last soldier fell, Liam stood panting, his heart racing, his hands still gripping the weapon. He looked at Zira, his eyes wide with disbelief. You're incredible," he said, breathless from the fight. Zira turned to him, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "I had to learn how to survive. My life wasn't always easy." Her voice was soft, but filled with a quiet strength. "But now, you've made all the difference." Liam looked around. The soldiers had all retreated, but he knew they wouldn't stop trying to find her. Not until she was dead. "We have to keep moving," he said, looking back at her. "They'll come back with more forces." Zira nodded. "I know. But for now, we've won, and that's enough." They didn't waste any more time. Together, they made their way toward the clearing, where a small, sleek ship waited for them. The ship was hidden deep in the forest, its cloaking technology keeping it out of sight from any pursuing enemies. Zira led the way, her steps sure and swift. As they approached the ship, Zira turned to Liam. "I know this isn't what you expected when you woke up this morning," she said, her eyes soft with gratitude. "But you've done more for me than I could have ever imagined. I owe you my life." Liam shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. I just did what anyone would do." But Zira wasn't convinced. She stepped forward, placing a hand on his arm. "No, what you've done, no one else would have done. You've risked everything for me, a stranger from another world. And for that, I can never repay you enough." Liam didn't know how to respond. He had no idea what had come over him to make him act the way he did. He was just a student, an ordinary guy, trying to survive. But looking at Zira, he realized that something had changed in him. He wasn't just helping her anymore. He was becoming part of her world. As they boarded the ship, Zira turned to him with a serious expression. "Once we get to my home planet, things will change. You'll no longer be just a human from Earth. You'll be an honored guest. You'll have a place in my world. A family." Liam blinked in surprise. "A family." Zira smiled, the kindness in her eyes unmistakable. "Yes, you've earned it. I have no words to express what your actions mean to me. You will never be alone again, Liam." Liam wasn't sure what to say. Family. He had no idea what that would look like, but somehow, in the back of his mind, It felt right. He had found a new purpose here, one that was more important than anything he had known before. As the ship lifted off from the forest floor, the stars ahead seemed to promise a new beginning. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, Liam felt hope rising inside him. Whatever was ahead, he knew he wouldn't be facing it alone. You said. The journey to Zira's home planet felt endless. As the ship glided through the vast expanse of space, Liam sat in a seat near the back, staring out the small window. He had never seen the stars this close, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. It was strange to think that just days ago, his biggest worries had been about homework and exams. Now, he was traveling through space with an alien princess, heading to a planet he knew nothing about. Zira sat nearby, quietly observing the controls of the ship. She seemed at ease, but Liam could tell that the weight of her situation hadn't left her. Her gaze occasionally drifted to the display screens in front of her, but her mind seemed far away, lost in thoughts about her home and her family. "Do you ever miss it?" Liam asked, breaking the silence. "Your home, I mean." Zira didn't look at him immediately, but after a moment, she replied, "I miss parts of it, the beauty of the landscapes, the people who were kind to me. But there's so much that's changed. I never thought I would be running from my own family." Liam nodded, understanding. It must have been hard for her, knowing that her own blood was trying to kill her. He couldn't imagine being in her shoes, with so much at stake. Yet, despite everything, she seemed stronger than anyone he had ever met. "I don't know if I could ever forgive them," she continued, her voice quiet. "But I have to go back. I need to take my rightful place as the ruler of my people. They won't see me as a threat anymore, but as the leader they need." Liam could sense the determination in her voice, but there was something else there too. A sadness, a longing to make things right. He didn't have the answers for her, but he could tell she was doing what she believed was best, and that was all anyone could do. A few hours passed in silence as the ship moved through space. The stars outside began to blur as they neared Zira's planet. Liam looked over at her. "What happens when we get there?" Zira's expression softened, her gaze turning toward him. "I'll be taken to the royal palace. My family will expect me to answer for what I've done, for leaving, for defying them. But I don't think they understand that I'm doing this for the good of everyone, not just for myself." Liam watched her, feeling a deep respect for her. She wasn't just a princess. She was someone who had the courage to fight for what she believed in. She was someone who wouldn't back down, no matter the cost. "I'll be with you," Liam said, his voice firm. "Whatever happens, you won't face it alone." Zira smiled, her eyes filled with a warmth that Liam hadn't seen before. "Thank you. I don't think I could do this without you." When the ship finally entered the atmosphere of Zira's home planet, Liam felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He had no idea what to expect. The planet was beautiful, with vast fields stretching out beneath a golden sky. The city they approached looked like something out of a dream, with towering spires and glowing structures. The ship descended slowly, and Zira's face grew more serious. "This is it," she said quietly. "It's time." As the ship landed, Liam couldn't help but feel a little out of place. This was her world, her people. But as the doors of the ship opened, he stood tall beside her. Whatever the future held, they were in this together. He had been a stranger to this galaxy, but now it felt like he had found his place, by Zira's side. The royal guards waiting outside looked at them with mixed expressions, but they didn't make a move. Zira stepped forward, her posture regal, her head held high. She was no longer just the princess on the run. She was the future of this planet, and Liam was ready to stand by her as she reclaimed it. Zira's family had no idea what was coming, but Liam did, and he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The royal palace was even more magnificent up close. Liam had never seen anything like it. The towering spires of shining metal stretched high into the sky, and the ground beneath his feet was made of smooth, polished stone. The entire palace seemed to hum with energy, like it was alive, filled with centuries of history. As he walked beside Zira, he felt like an outsider. This place was a world away from the quiet college campus he had known. But now, as the doors to the palace opened and guards stepped forward to greet them, Liam couldn't help but feel something shift inside him. This wasn't just Zira's world, it was becoming his world too. Zira walked ahead, her posture straight and confident. She was a princess, a leader, but there was something more in the way she carried herself now. She wasn't just the heir to a throne anymore. She was a force to be reckoned with. The guards didn't speak as they approached the palace's grand hall, but their eyes followed Zira with respect and curiosity. As they entered the hall, a long corridor stretched ahead, adorned with banners and portraits of past rulers. The walls gleamed with a soft, golden light, and Liam could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. They were greeted by a high-ranking officer, his face stern and unreadable. "Princess Zira, we have been awaiting your return," he said, bowing slightly. "The royal council is ready to meet you." Zira nodded, but there was no sign of hesitation in her movements. "Lead the way," she said firmly. As they walked further into the palace, Liam couldn't help but feel out of place. He was just a human, a simple student who had stumbled into an alien world. But Zira's confidence made him feel like he belonged here. She needed him, and that was enough for him to keep going, no matter how strange or unfamiliar this place felt. They arrived in the council chamber, a large, circular room with high ceilings and intricate designs on the walls. At the center of the room, a group of alien leaders sat, their faces stern and guarded. Zira's family, her father, the king, and her mother, the queen, sat at the head of the table. They were older, more regal, but the coldness in their eyes was unmistakable. Zira stepped forward, standing tall in front of the council. "I've returned," she said, her voice unwavering, "and I've come to claim my place as the ruler of this kingdom." Liam stood behind her, feeling the tension in the room. The king and queen exchanged glances, but neither of them spoke. Zira's words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The king finally stood, his voice cold and authoritative. "You have been gone for too long, Zira," he said, his eyes narrowing. "You have no place here. You are a traitor to this kingdom." Zira didn't flinch. "I was never a traitor," she replied. "I was fighting for the future of this kingdom, not just for my own throne." The queen's voice was sharp as she spoke. "You are nothing without us, Zira. You will never rule here." Liam's heart pounded as he watched the tension between Zira and her family grow. This was it, the moment when Zira would either reclaim her place or lose it forever. But Zira didn't back down. She stood tall, her eyes locked on her parents. "I may not have your approval," she said, her voice steady and strong. "But I have something more important, the support of my people and the courage to lead them. And with that, I will rebuild this kingdom." The council fell silent. King and queen exchanged another look, and for a long moment, it seemed as though they would refuse her. But then, slowly, the king nodded. "We will not stand in your way, Zira," he said, his voice gruff. "You have proven yourself." Zira's eyes softened, and she looked back at Liam. "And I owe part of that to you," she said, her voice quiet but full of meaning. Liam felt his heart swell. He had helped her get this far, but now, Zira was the one who had made it happen. She had reclaimed her kingdom, her future, and nothing would stand in her way now. Zira turned to face her family once more, her expression resolute. "This kingdom will be different now," she said. "It will be built on trust, unity, and respect for all." As the council members nodded in agreement, Liam realized something. He wasn't just a bystander in this alien world anymore. He was part of something much bigger. He had found a family, a new purpose, and for the first time in his life, he felt truly at home. The days that followed were filled with meetings, strategy sessions, and plans for the future of Zira's kingdom. Liam had never imagined his life would be like this. He had gone from a regular college student to an active participant in an intergalactic struggle for power and leadership. And now, with Zira finally in control of her kingdom, things were changing, but not without complications. Zira had been busy with royal duties, but she never let the distance between them grow. She made sure Liam was included in everything. Discussions about the future of the kingdom, talks with the people, and even the cultural ceremonies that defined her world. It was clear that she trusted him. But as time went on, Liam began to sense an undercurrent of tension. Her family, the royal court, still regarded him with curiosity, sometimes even suspicion. One evening, Zira invited him to a private dinner. It wasn't unusual for the two of them to meet in this way, but tonight felt different. The air between them was charged with something unspoken. As they sat at the grand dining table in one of the palace's many chambers, Zira looked at Liam with a seriousness he hadn't seen in her before. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice steady but heavy with the weight of what was to come. She paused, letting the silence linger. "My family, they don't trust you." Liam was taken aback. He had noticed the coldness, the way they looked at him with cautious eyes, but he had hoped it was just because he was from Earth. "I understand that," Liam said quietly, trying to mask his disappointment. "But I've done nothing to betray you. I'm here because I believe in what you're doing." Zira's eyes softened, but there was a hint of sadness in them. "I know, but loyalty is everything here. My family, especially my father, believes I've made a mistake. He wants to test you, Liam, to see if you're truly loyal to me." Liam's mind raced. He had already put everything on the line for her. He had fought beside her, helped her reclaim her place, and risked his life countless times. But the idea that he had to prove himself even more was unsettling. "What do you mean by test?" Liam asked, his voice unsure. He had already proven his loyalty in every way he knew how. What more could they want from him? Zira sighed deeply. "They want you to make a choice. They'll offer you a place among the court, power, wealth, all the things they can give. But they'll ask you to distance yourself from me, to pledge your loyalty to them instead. If you do, they'll treat you like royalty, and you'll never have to struggle again. If you don't, they'll see you as a threat, and they won't hesitate to remove you from the picture." Liam felt his stomach tighten. He knew what the right answer was, but the idea of losing everything he had come to care about was terrifying. "They're trying to buy me off," Liam said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Trying to break us apart." Zira nodded, her face resolute but conflicted. "Yes, they're testing whether you'll stand with me, whether you'll stand for what's right, or whether you'll turn your back on everything we'd fought for." Liam stared at her, his heart heavy with the decision that loomed ahead. It was clear now that this wasn't just about loyalty to her. It was about choosing a future, not just for himself, but for her, and for the kingdom she was rebuilding. "I'll stand with you, Zira," Liam said firmly, his voice filled with determination. "I won't let them tear us apart. I'm here for you, no matter what." Zira's face softened, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. "I knew I could count on you," she whispered. Liam's decision was made, and though the road ahead would be difficult, he knew that standing beside Zira, against the odds, was the only way forward. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them head-on. He had already chosen his path, and there was no turning back. Together, they would fight for the kingdom's future, and he would stand by her side as her most loyal ally. The tension in the palace had reached its peak. Liam could feel it in the air, thick and heavy with uncertainty. The royal court was divided. Some supported Zira's leadership, but many still whispered about her being a runaway princess, a danger to the established order. The king and queen had not given up on trying to weaken her claim, and every day felt like a new battle. But Zira stood firm. She was no longer the uncertain girl who had fled her home. She had become a true leader, one who was ready to rebuild her kingdom, to unite the people who had once abandoned her. And through it all, Liam stood by her, his loyalty unshakable. One afternoon, Zara called for a council meeting in the grand hall of the palace. Liam sat at the back of the room, feeling the eyes of the royal court on him. They were still wary of him, but he had earned his place by Zara's side. He had proven himself in the field, fought for her, and protected her when no one else would. The thought of betraying her was impossible. Zara stood before the council, her presence commanding the room. The once doubtful faces of her advisors now looked to her with respect. She had faced their challenges, and she had come through stronger. The time has come to solidify our future, Zara began, her voice calm but strong. We will no longer be divided by old loyalties or fears. This kingdom will be ruled by justice, compassion, and unity. Liam watched as the members of the council shifted in their seats, some with approval, others with doubt. The royal family still had their reservations, especially her father, but he saw the way Zara spoke with such certainty and conviction. She wasn't just talking about taking back her throne anymore. She was talking about changing everything. I've asked you to test my loyalty, she continued, her eyes scanning the room. But the true test lies in your actions, not your words. If we are to move forward, we must all be willing to change. There was a silence in the room, a moment of realization. Some of the council members looked at each other, unsure of what Zara was demanding. But Liam could see it in her eyes. This was her moment. She wasn't just taking back her kingdom. She was reshaping it for the better. Zara turned to Liam, and for the first time, she smiled. A genuine, full smile, not just one of gratitude, but one that spoke of trust and unity. And I do not stand here alone, she said, her voice steady. Liam has shown me what true loyalty means. He has earned a place in this kingdom, not just by my side, but as part of our future. Liam's heart swelled at her words. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about building something better, something that would last. He had helped her get to this point, but now they were in this together, facing the challenges of leadership, of rebuilding a kingdom that had been torn apart by greed and fear. As the council members looked at each other, Liam felt a shift in the room. He had always known this moment would come. There would be resistance, there would be doubt, but there would also be those who saw the truth of what Zara wanted to do. She had a vision for a better world, and Liam was going to be there to help her make it a reality. The king and queen exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. But it was the queen who finally spoke, her voice softer than before. "We will support you, Zara," she said, her words reluctant but sincere. "You have proven yourself worthy." And with that, the final barriers began to crumble. The council meeting was over, but the journey was far from complete. As Zara and Liam walked out of the hall, side by side, they knew there would be more challenges ahead, but they were ready. Together, they would rebuild her kingdom, not through force, but through trust, loyalty, and a shared vision of the future. The road ahead would be long, but with Zara's leadership and Liam by her side, they could overcome anything. It was the beginning of a new era. And this time, nothing could tear them apart.